Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Tanya Marie, your host, and today's episode is the first in my new series called Talks with Crystal Skulls. This series is going to explore the Crystal Skull Collective through my eyes. The Skull Collective will eventually be introduced to here that I'm honored to share space with and work with, and other soul family that are tuned in with the skulls. So that could include master carvers of crystal skulls and other healers who are on a path to support the Earth family, our Earth collective, into this next creative journey of evolution in her historical expansion that's taking place. So this first episode is going to be an introduction of sorts to, as I said, the Crystal Skull Collective that I have with me as my friends and co-creators, but that I am being told to share with others. And they are called the speakers, which we'll learn a little bit more about nearer to the end of today's episode. But they are the Skull Collective, as I said, that I am honored and humbled to create space with, and was told that this is the time to share them with you. And that'll make more sense as I tell you about how this came together. But before I delve into that, please allow me a moment. I'm just going to do a short introduction because some of you may be finding me for the very first time. And if so, you might just want to know who's talking with you here, who's sharing this information, just a little glimpse into who I am so that you can feel that connection and resonance to what I'm speaking about. So a little bit about me. I've consciously been working in the creative healing arts and metaphysical fields for over 30 years. This year I turned 50, so it's exciting that I get to share this Skull Collective that has finalized in my 50th year with you as sort of a celebration. So that's a special thing for me. But so I started my conscious journey spiritually at a very young age, around 14, reading, spiritual awareness types of books, metaphysical types of books, and it progressed from there. And from then, my focus has been supporting myself and others to come into our most empowered frequency possible in this very moment, this creative moment here at this time and space together, so that we can open the channels for more creative potentials as we're co-creating what some people call this new Earth experience. And I've done that through a variety of different expressions, personal expressions, as a writer, an artist, a Reiki master teacher, energy alchemist, sound channeler, intuitive, so many different versions of expressions, and I move in and out of those at different times. My motto, most people know this if you've been following me, is creating life as a work of art, and I do that daily, and I believe in that being the magical way we can experience what this human life can be about. I know myself as an ambassador and a bridge between realms, between species on and off this earth, a bridge between heart connections, heart to heart. I do all of the work that I do through the heart chakra. And I talk with crystal skulls, with crystals. I talk with the unseens, the cosmic realms and animals, but most particularly and dear to my heart, rabbits. And until today, I did have, I've had 5 rabbits over the course of my life. And Astrid, my most recent co-creator, just transitioned on the full blue moon of August 30th, so very recent. So she normally would be with me physically. You might see her running around in these videos. She may not physically be seen, but she is by my side. She is here. So she joins me with many on the other side to share with you today and through all the episodes to come. So we have that introduction aside. You won't hear it again, only this first episode, just so that I can meet you and share who you are also in comments below, so I can get to know who you are as well, and we can see those common threads that we might share. As far as crystal skulls go, I've worked with crystal skulls, of course, since I believe in more lifetimes than just this one, beyond just what I'm speaking about now and in this life. But in this current embodiment, I would say they became a conscious part of my life around the time that I became a Reiki master teacher. So since 2007, that's when I, started being aware again, bringing that to the conscious level, that crystal skulls were something that I've worked with, something that I probably would be working with. And crystals in general were coming into my life in a huge way at that time as well. And I did have the opportunity to sit with two of the very famous ancient crystal skulls, Max and Shana Ra, back in about 2008, 2009, if my memory serves correct, because they were visiting in Reno, which is very close to where I live in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. And I had some very powerful experiences in those private times that I shared with them. And it awoken something in me. And I felt from that moment that I would probably be drawing in my own crystal skull, my first one. And I did. It wasn't long after that I did find it was a human-sized quartz skull. And her name was Raja Serafina, who came into my life. And she was in my life for several years. We did a lot of work together. She was with me also when I had a couple of my other rabbits in my life and a tortoise named Gaia. And she opened up that remembrance within me of the times that I've worked with the crystal skulls. She is no longer with me. She did move on, because not all crystals and crystal skulls stay with us forever, as many of you know. Some do, some don't. Some stay with us for short periods, long periods. They all have their purpose, just like us, and how people move in and out of our lives. So she did move on, and now is with a very dear friend and shaman. So I know that she's in great hands and doing amazing collective work. So after that, I did have a few smaller skulls that came into my experience, but they moved on as well. And then I became skullless for a while, although I did have some crystals. And it wasn't until just recently again that I started getting these messages and was told that many skulls were going to start coming to me. I didn't know just how many they were talking about. And it's not many, because I'm sure there's some people who have hundreds upon hundreds, but it was much more than I thought would happen. And it did take some time to hear them calling and to find just the ones that were meant to be part of this collective that was forming. But what I learned is that everything was on an as need to know basis. And so I was supposed to just surrender and drop into trusting what was happening, even though it seemed bizarre, So it was quite an involved process. If I were to tell you it all, it would blow your mind how it all happened. And of course, there's a lot of magical alignments and things that, happen along the way. And I know that you've probably experienced that too, if, you're in this process as well as having crystals and crystal skulls in your life. It's a very, enchanting and otherworldly kind of experience, and all these bizarre things can happen, and that's what did. And I was just told that I was to listen to who was to come and who was going to stay, to support who was going to move on, to listen to even where they were going to sit, how they'd be gridded, who would be their companions, where they sat. I mean, there was just all this stuff. And even, when I would get their names and when I would get their purpose, it all had its own timing, and I was completely not to control that. And so it's been a really empowering process to do that, to surrender, to trusting, how this is all unfolding. And in the end, then you look back and you're like, oh, wow. Okay, that all made sense. And, in the process, it looks like some crazy thing. And I'm sure people, who knew me close thought I was kind of crazy, for what was going on here. But, I'm still trusting it, even though the story is continuing to unfold. Everything is just an unfolding story, isn't it? So I did have to wait for their timing. And I wasn't going to be working with them either until everyone was situated. I also was told not to share about them until the time was right. So not to show any of them, not to talk about them, that there was just this sort of magical space to create in like a bubble world to allow them to be in that for a while, to birth. So it's kind of like in a womb and birthing, you could say. And that was not to be touched or infringed upon in any way. So maybe it's even sort of like the cocooning mode too, before the butterfly emerges, and how you can't help the butterfly come out of that cocoon either. It has to have its own timing. And if you interfere with any part of that, that can also hinder the butterfly from emerging or having a vital, resilient life. So that's kind of what's been happening here. And I was just to trust it. So during this process, I've also noticed that was my inner world, but I was noticing the outer and external world. And although crystals and crystal skulls have been around for ages, and many people have had them for a very long time, I was noticing how alive they were really coming on the scene, like even more so than ever. It wasn't something that I used to hear about from everybody. And maybe it's because the web, is so connective now, and we can see so many things and hear so many things, and people are talking. Whatever, time speeding up. I believe it's just the evolution of humanity and what we're ready for. But I've seen this upsurge in prominence of how many people are being attracted to crystal skulls who never were before. So it's not just people who loved them or loved crystals and being drawn to bring crystal skulls into their lives, but now it was people who may have even had a repulsion against them, or a fear or a judgment, or just never had any resonance whatsoever with crystal skulls, were finding themselves being drawn to these crystal skulls, and not just one, but many coming to them. And it's just been amazing to watch, because you just never would have seen this before. At least I haven't, until, these last few years. It's just really exploded. And this all was happening at the same time, as I said, that my skull collective was coming into being and saying, the time is now, the time is now. Do this, listen to us, do what we're saying. So it's been an interesting weaving inner and outer worlds happening at once. And I love watching that. And I've also noticed, so many carvers and master carvers coming on the scene, and just amazing how they are so in tune and so connected with the stones and the crystals, and bringing some truly incredible beings to life in great abundance. And so they're helping to really bring this on the scene. And all of it just, again, is like aligning with how fast and rapid the evolution of humanity and the experience, some people say, moving to 4D, 5D, all that kind of thing, how that's all so rapidly happening, this ascension process, or whatever you want to call it. I don't care for labels, but there is just a huge movement of energy in a way I haven't seen before with the crystals. And so maybe you've seen that too. And maybe that's why you're even finding this channel, this episode right here and right now, is because you might be, for the first time, experiencing or finding crystal skulls, or wanting to know more, or just wanting to find a collective family and others who are having the experiences that you are. And so that's why I've put this together. There's many other places you can connect as well. So this isn't the only, it's just everyone has a unique perspective. Everyone has a unique thing to share. And so maybe whatever experience that I will present here is what's been calling to your heart. And so that's why I'm sharing, or why I'm being told to share this stuff. But so what it all does say to me, like I said, is that the time is now. Everything's happening now. It's not like later. There's no past, present, future kinds of stuff. Like I don't see time that way, other than when I have to focus on something in the moment, that zeroes me in somewhere, but it's all happening at once. So when I say the time is now, it's like everything all at once coming together. So yes, we're creating the future from the now, we're shifting the past from the now, but then all of those parallel experiences are happening right now for the collective. And whatever we have triggered in our integrative evolution so far is making this come to the surface to support us into remembering. I always say remembering who we are, activating the DNA that's been latent within us for so long. And the crystal skulls are definitely helping with that. And I feel that they have a lot to say and reflect to us, and that the more that we're willing to be open and hear and engage and even act upon what comes through, the more we are going to experience magic in our life. Truly, like the magic that was always available, that always was who you are. The crystal skulls are reminding us of that. And they're not the only ones. There's other, there's crystals, there's other modalities, there's other experiences, there's nature, there's whatever. There's so many different things that can, but if you're being drawn here, there's something particular that the crystal skulls are speaking to you about, and you'll find your place with that. So, as far as my path with this, each episode is going to have a different focus, and I will only know what that focus is when I'm told from the skulls and I listen. But I don't feel it's my place in my path to tell you how to work with skulls, although I will share some personal experiences along the way, and some of the personal things that I do, but it's not for me to say that there's one way to do something. And you'll always hear me say this about anything, that I really, really, really want to support and empower people to learn how to trust themselves, to learn how to listen to their intuition, and to act upon that. No matter how crazy, how weird, how different it is, that is what I really want to support within you, if you're listening here today. So again, yes, I might share some of the stuff that I do, but you don't have to do things the way that I do them. You do things the way you do you, because you're a unique being, and that's the reason you're here. Your frequency your unique frequency to bring that forth. And that can be completely different to what somebody else is doing. So it's great, to share some of the particulars and ways, because maybe that helps jumpstart you and get you somewhere. So it's not that I won't say some of those things, but I just don't want you to, grasp on to what I say or what other people say, unless that feels right for you. If it feels right for you, that's one thing. But just because someone says something, don't make it your thing. Really, be curious about how you feel about something and then go from there. So it's not my path, as I said, to tell you how to work with them. And it's not my path to fill in all the metaphysical aspects of crystals or historical facts about skulls. A lot of this kind of stuff, you can just use the web and Google or search for everything, and you can find a multitude of information out there and explore. So I'm not going to focus in on that. I have a unique, my own frequency to share with you, messages, experiences, or my perspectives. And I'm just going to trust those things and not sit here to try to teach you any specific way. So if you're finding me today, then it's probably because, there's something calling you to that innate power within you that these crystal skulls are helping to assist you with and to hear or receive something from. And I am going to be sharing, I'll tell you now. So the crystal skulls that I have, the group, they're called the Speakers. And I will tell you why that name has come to be and what that is about later on as we get past some of the info that I did feel important that I wanted to share today. But yeah, they're hanging out next to me right here. They're like telling me where to go with things here, and I love it. It's just, I got to listen and trust. So I do want to share just a few things about crystal skulls and crystals in general that you can explore a little bit more. So maybe they're just like little seeds that can take you somewhere else, or maybe they just help you to know that what you were feeling about something you're on path with. Because sometimes people look for those little threads to say, oh yeah, I'm aligned. So briefly, I'll just share, you might have heard the stories about the 13 ancient crystal skulls. And, some people might believe those stories or not. I'm just going to share the little bit that I know about them so that you can take it from there if that's something you want to explore. But it's a way to connect you to the Crystal Skull Collective and maybe understand their origins and what they're about. So these stories tell of the 13 ancient crystal skulls that held a wisdom and knowledge that was key about the origins of humanity, our roles in our evolutionary journey here, and even some of the mysteries of the universe. So they're coded with this information, and it is said that they were around at the time of the golden age of Atlantis, and when Atlantis fell, that a lot of the priestesses and priests, people that worked with the crystals at that time period, took them and hid them across the globe in sacred sites, sacred parts of the world, so that they would not be found until humanity was ready for that knowledge again. And if you do prescribe to this story, then you will understand that the Crystal Skull Collective, that crystal skulls that you find and bring home, are connected to these original ones, just as we are as humans all connected to each other. And so you can tap into some of that knowledge and information, and They may help you to access certain doorways or portals of experience that can help you with your evolutionary process, help us as a whole with the evolutionary process of Earth, because these ancient skulls held a very different kind of frequency that was of the one or all that is. And it really truly is the codings for remembering your authentic power and divinity and where you truly come from and who you are at the core of the core of the core. So enough about them, but it is really fascinating information, and maybe even if you meditated on it, you'll get your own stories that come through, more information than that. And you may even be able to tap into some of them, even if they're not in your presence. Remember, we have, as multidimensional beings, the potentials to tap into all streams and frequencies of energy around us in consciousness. So you are not limited unless you believe you are limited. So there's a lot out there you can access, and if you are drawn to a crystal skull, then you are getting another helpful doorway to that information. But I feel that the more people are rapidly opening these doors to those innate gifts that are inside, it's bringing alive the truth that's locked in there within your very DNA, within your true soul ancestry. And so as that happens, then people are finding themselves drawing in new experiences, new modalities, and that could include crystals and crystal skulls, and having them as co-creators and companions in your life. So even if you don't know why, you're drawn to a particular skull, and you just bring one into your life, simply by saying yes to them and bringing them home is helping something to shift in your vibration. When even when like you meet somebody who's soul family and you meet them for the very first time in person, there's something that gets activated when those souls come together. It's the same thing with your crystal skull or crystals or something like that when it comes into your frequency and it comes into your space, there's something that gets activated within you, and it can help awaken something that you've forgotten a very, very long time ago. So it's a really special process when you say yes to something like that. It's more than just, yes, I'm going to bring or purchase this skull and bring it home. It's like I'm saying yes to my power. I'm saying yes to knowing more, to being more, to remembering more. So think on that for a moment. I like to think of crystal skulls as they're like ancient librarians, if you can envision that. So as ancient librarians, they know how to find the book of wisdom needed for a variety of themes that you might want to journey through in life, right? So I envision walking through a multi-dimensional room of shelves, and it goes in all directions. And every time I speak to a skull, it's like I'm choosing from one shelf and inviting a book to read me a story. And then like the downloads begin after that. And sometimes you might want to like shuffle through the drawers of the library cards to find just what you want, or you can simply wander the shelves and allow the moment to open to the perfect page at the perfect time. And the crystal skulls, they connect to a star system, I feel, in the cosmos. So, and also ancient sites on the earth. And so you can communicate even with, like I said, those ancient 13 skulls that I said, as well as the collective at large that are on or off Earth. So again, those ancient librarians that have access to information that you can just peel back pages of the book with your skull, and open that through your own DNA that holds all of this in mirror as well. So the skull is mirroring all of these things for you, and there's so many layers and parts to them, just like there are of you. And so I just, I'm a creative, so I like to creatively visualize different ways of seeing how these processes work or what things symbolize. I think it makes it more tangible in my experience and more magical as well. But when I say magical, it's not the magic that's not tangible. It's a very tangible magic to me. It's stuff that manifests. It's manifesting all those things you dream of, kinds of things, things you believe in, and making them realities. So it's that kind of magic. And it happens in a variety of ways. And one way could be through a co-creator crystal skull friend who shows you the magic of who you are. So not only are they magical, but really they're reflecting you're the magic. And you are the ancient librarian just as much as they are. And you have many pages and books within you just as the crystal skulls do. So it's just perspective can shift anything for you. And along those lines, I always like to plant seeds or nurture seeds of multidimensionality. So let's expand for a moment with our multidimensional awareness and think about it from this perspective. If we, the selves that we think of as ourselves in 3D, are potentially manifestations or emanations or actualizations of other expansive multidimensional selves that give life to us, then maybe, just maybe, these skulls are also similar projection selves of greater parts of us coming to life as animations of that wisdom to guide us. So think on that for a moment. So I think you know this as maybe your experience or others. We all tend to project wisdom onto beings or others outside of ourselves, right? That could be spirit guides, angels, dimensional beings, all of, that kind of thing. And I'm not negating that at all, because believe me, I believe in them and their existence and work with them. And I'm also not negating the fact that they may be coming through and channeling through a crystal or a crystal skull friend that we have. But from the perspective, the multidimensional perspective I just shared, just maybe that wisdom you're receiving from your crystal friend or friends is coming from your multidimensionality and streaming in through channels that part of you knows will be most supportive for you to hear from. So it takes on an identity separate to you when in fact it is you. Okay? So they may be other beings or spirits, these crystal skulls. They may have that in them and they may be channeling that. We're multidimensional. There's many different versions and ways this can happen, but they may also simply be aspects of self that make it easier to receive from by our filtering systems if we see them as other, right? If we see them as ourselves, it might be a little bit harder. We may not trust it as much. It might seem weird. But if we see it as other, we always project onto other, then maybe that's a little bit more comforting for us. It's a little easier for us. Something else, something greater always seems to need to be something outside of ourselves, because we couldn't possibly be the greater, right? But we are. So that's just a perspective that I want to bring to this, is that it's okay to have a crystal skull be another being or another spirit, and they may very well be, but they may very well be an aspect of you talking to you. So this is speaking to how, again, we doubt ourselves, or we don't trust ourselves fully in our own power and our intuitive abilities, and how we still operate from fragmented parts rather than from our wholeness. And so maybe our crystal skull friends can teach us that more, how to come from our wholeness, how to start seeing ourselves as that greater being, as the wisdom, as the one that's coded with all the wisdom within us, and they're reflecting it to us, and they are helping to activate and make us aware of that aspect of us. And at some point, they'll no longer be something separate, but they will be us, and we'll become one. And you will realize that what's in your crystal skull or your crystal or anything really is within you. And that's when the magic works. That's when it happens. And that's when we start to really liven all of our parts and bring wholeness back together. So it's not we're not judging here. There's no wrong in how we've been going about a process or how we do, because it's all perfect and it's all helping us, and it's part of the journey, and it's integral and it's valuable. It's an individual journey, right? So at any moment, we can just change the perspective, and we might discover a whole other rich relationship that points directly within. So that's my fun little multidimensional talk. But in general, I do feel that the crystal skulls, they reflect what is in the heart of each individual, and they can act as a key to help unlock that. And they do have this energy of transformation about them. And it's not simply just about change, but it's like that chrysalis process that I was mentioning before, but think more like a crystalline metamorphosis. That's like the birthing and death of a star all at once. It's just pure, beyond just change. I don't feel that skulls are about death, although they do bring up thoughts of that in the transformational process. That could include rebirth, but it's rather that they're about our very humanity and the foundations of our humanity. And they also reflect our resiliency and our persistency that we're made of. Because if you think about it, our bones can last indefinitely in the earth if they become fossilized, right? So they do show us those aspects of ourselves as well. They symbolize higher awareness, right? The mind's ability to access knowledge, your spirituality embodied, and like a shaft through which you can channel and fine-tune your psychic and intuitive abilities through. As a carving, the crystal skull has this ability also to amplify and focus or connect with your collective consciousness network. So it brings like a laser vision to your work in working with a skull. So there's many different things, and I'm not touching upon all things a skull. Crystal skull symbolizes just some, so that you can reflect upon them and how they might be being experienced in your life, what they're bringing forth for you, and why they might be coming at this time. If it touches on one of those themes that I just mentioned, it might make sense why they're weaving through. So again, it's not my intent to tell you how to do any of this, the connecting and ways to have to work with them, because it is an individual process and we each have unique ways about us. And I feel that is always going to be the most important thing to trust. no matter how silly it seems or different from what other people are doing or what other people tell you or how they think you should be doing it. Again, just listen to yourself and don't wait or think that it has to come in some grand display, like hits you over the head kind of experience either. Things work when you're working with crystals or crystal skulls because you believe it, and then it happens because you trust it. So tuning into your skulls is a matter of deciding to sit down and doing it and being open to the process and to receive, to be open to receiving. And then you learn how to interpret the individual messaging that comes through, right? And messaging is going to be different for everyone. I could work with a crystal skull and maybe symbols and colors come to me and I interpret those. Maybe when you sit down with a crystal skull, you get full-on sentences and books of information that just comes through clearly. They work with each person differently. So just because I say I have this particular experience or way doesn't mean that's going to be yours. So that is something we each individually learn and teach ourselves how to interpret along the way and be patient with, to interpret your individual messaging through your individual frequency, the way that the skull wants to work with you, or from the multidimensional aspect, the way you want to work with yourself. Maybe you know the way to access certain parts of you, and that's how you come through. Or maybe you know that challenging yourself a certain way is the only way that's going to open certain doorways in you. So it's all unique. It's all, about you and your experience. Some people might get this through meditation and sitting and meditating with your crystal skull. You might want to hold it to your third eye or heart chakra or other chakras, because then you feel and you get something through that opening, and there might be a messaging that comes that way. Some people like to sleep with them by their bedside, have them next to them on their desk when they're working. For dream time, asking questions ahead before you go to bed from your crystal skull, or just questions before you meditate. So there's so many different ways, and I'm not, even hitting on a tenth of them, or maybe 100, I don't know, but there's a lot. And I said I would just, mention some things in case this is a beginning journey for you, and you're just sort of curious, just to get you jump started somewhere. But for those of you who are already on that path, you probably have all kinds of ways that you work. And sometimes it's just, you just hold your crystal skull and boom, it's like a flash. It just comes in clear. Sometimes we have to work for it a little bit more, and sometimes it's just right there and easy. So you never know. It all depends your personal journey, where you are in life, what you're ready for, what you need at this moment, and you go from there. And there's no judgment. Again, it's just a process, a beautiful journey, an adventure to have fun with. One other aspect, so there's a lot of generals that I've been going over as part of this first episode, just to give you sort of an overview. But another aspect I wanted to touch on, just about crystals in general, which includes crystal skulls, is something that I've gotten questions about a lot, and recently again, and I've seen it discussed out there as well. And again, I'm going to come from my personal experience, and I'm not, the law. I'm just going to share my perspective. But some people have asked, the difference between a raw natural crystal versus a carved or polished crystal. And there are some people and information that believe that only in the raw and natural state of a crystal is it in its most powerful essence, and that by polishing or carving, that it takes away from that, and that there's some belief that you should only work just with the raw and natural crystals. So there's a lot of back and forths, and then there's a lot of in between and gray areas, which is where I stand, because I am not a black and white at all. And anytime I hear that, I'm always much more curious and always going to explore and or offer another perspective. So, everyone's going to have their take on it, or maybe strong opinions, and that's okay. I'm not saying any of them are wrong. I'm just giving you a perspective to think about. So, again, the question goes back to, are raw natural crystals of a higher vibration versus polished and carving, and does that diminish their vibration? So what I say and what I've shared before is everything's relative to the individual and what you resonate with and align with. That said, yes, a natural and raw untouched crystal is going to be very high frequency, powerful, and that's great, but it may not always be for everyone, and it may not always be for you at every moment on your journey, because maybe it supports change too fast that you are not ready for. Now, we know that everything is perfect, and no matter what happens and unfolds is done in the perfect way, even if it comes too fast. However, that said, it might be more challenging than you had wanted to take on. And so I believe that polishing a crystal may, in some cases, calm that energy down, make it more gentle. And so the process might not be quite as fast or quite as challenged, because it's coming through in a softer way. So it may soften the energy a little bit so it's not as overbearing during those times when you just don't want that. That said, there's also crystals that get carved into certain forms, like pyramids, towers, skulls, and things like that, that can actually help to focus energy or amplify energy for particular reasons. So in those cases, the carving actually enhances it in a particular way, right? So that can happen with stones and crystals. And I also feel that stones and crystals, like us, since everything is consciousness, have very unique energy footprints and personalities. And some of them, I believe, are happier or feel livelier or more authentic, even perhaps, when they are seen for who they are, and when that aspect of them is brought more to life through, say, a carving. So somebody who understands this, maybe a master carver who works with energy and can see with the eye and the heart, will see that in the stone and the crystal that they're carving, and help the stone and the crystal to feel empowered and bring forth their individuality in the way that they want to come through. So you can think of it as people, just like we change a haircut or hair color or specific clothing or color of clothing or jewelry, or anything that we shift in our life, we do because it makes us feel more ourselves, more empowered, more a particular way, or you just in general come to life in a whole new way. Well, I believe that crystals also, because of their unique frequencies and personalities, some want to come through a certain way. And so carving them may actually be enhancing and supporting them in their own evolutionary process, just like us. So that's one perspective. Also, if you think about it, the ancients have used both raw and cut or formed stones and crystals over the ages as well. They had amulets and adornments that they wore just as much as working with untouched stones. So even from way back when, we've had both. So I really feel that, there can be many reasons to work with one or the other, and you have to really just trust your intuition what feels right for you in this moment, and go from there. Also remember that a raw natural crystal, if it's been in the hands of many people, it also could be manipulated energetically by the people that it has worked with, because they can program it a specific way and shift things energetically by working with them. So a raw natural crystal doesn't always mean it's in its most essence state from its origins as well. So in either case, whether you feel drawn to a raw crystal or you feel drawn to a polished or carved crystal, I always feel it's important when you bring one home to cleanse it and nurture it and do your energy work and cultivate that stone or crystal to help bring it back to life in the way it was meant to be, in its most highest, most natural vibration and origin as possible. So that's to say that, again, a raw crystal doesn't mean, it's not manipulated in some sort of way, because just because it hasn't been carved, it could energetically be. So my takeaway is, have some of both. Have some raw, have some polished. It's a great balance. And then you can see which one you need and which one you're drawn to at any particular time in your life, and see what's appropriate to your journey by having both. They're both beautiful and empowering and gonna work the perfect energy that you need. If you're drawn to it, there's a reason for it. So trust that, and don't be hindered by what others think and say. If you feel something makes you feel empowered, that's what's important. Okay. So I just wanted to go over that, because I know that comes up a lot and people do ask, and it's a good question, and there's a lot of things to think about, and probably even more than I'm even touching on, but I wanted to bring that out since we are talking about crystal skulls and carvings, and some people might have certain ideas about that, but remember, if you do believe in the stories of the 13 ancient crystal skulls, these ancient crystal skulls were not carved by man. They've been proven, the ones that they have found, that there are no tools on this earth that could have carved them. So they are carved by other means, whether that's telepathy or some other form of energy work, not at our disposal at this time. But they were carved, and there's purpose there. And so that, think on that as well when you're taking into account whether or not, you want a raw or a carved crystal, that there's purpose in all of it. So back to, what this episode is about, the speakers, which is my skull collective. Now that I've gotten a lot of the little tidbits that I wanted to speak on for at least this time, maybe some other stuff will come up next time, but as I mentioned, this skull collective started appearing in my life, and I couldn't understand what was happening because it was a lot. At least for me. Like I said, I don't have hundreds like some people might have, but I was used to just a few in my life, and at one time even just one. But I kept trusting, and I kept doing what they asked. For some reason, no matter how, even to me, bizarre it was, I just okay, I know I need to do this. Sometimes I didn't even know how I would be able to purchase, financially a specific being, but they always said trust and things will happen. And it always has, and it always will. And so I just focus on that, innate knowing and believing in that. So I kept doing that, and when they would come to me, as I said, is important. I would always cleanse them and charge them, and they'd go out in the garden, or they'd have, special time with Astrid at the time, my rabbit who was with me, and she would do preparatory work with them, and all of this to help them to return to the origins of their nature and clear them of anything, that had come through before being here with me, so I could help them get more into their pure earth and cosmic original intent. And then I patiently waited for them, and it took a couple of years, and I ended up with two groups that started to split. I'm only going to be focusing today with you on the first group. And it was amazing to watch it, because they would call, like I said before, they would call in some skulls would leave, they'd rearrange themselves, they'd call in other crystals. There was just like this whole process, and they would work with each other. Again, I wasn't to work with them yet. They were working with each other and doing all these downloads and activations and dialogue between each other as part of the process. And I would trust, when work was complete with certain ones, that it was okay to release them. And I really love that, because some of those that did get released from this original group went out to other people, and that means that those people are connected with this group, and the work continues on, and then they may have a group that's growing from that. And so there's just this beautiful tapestry that's being spread all over, and it's just a really beautiful thing. So I've learned to trust, even when I have such a strong emotional connection with a skull, if it says it's ready to move on, I let it move on. And Astrid has helped me a lot with that too, that it's not for me to cage it like that, butterfly. It needs to fly. So I have let them, and I watched, and it's been really interesting. And in the end, the core group that stayed were meant to be here. And the others will, like I said, still always be connected, and they're part of the coding that's been processed. But now they get to grid other areas of the globe and start spreading in other ways, just like all crystal skulls are doing, not just my group. This is just my experience that I'm sharing. But finally, they did all come together. It was quite a process, and they come to sit the way that I'll be showing you in a second. A couple minutes here. But they've all anchored in, and they've all reacquainted with each other and have activated each other, and they've told me now that they're ready. Until then, I was just observing. I was the observer and just the person to bring them, to travel in and out. And once they all got gridded the way that they are, then the next step came into play. And then they each told me whether they identified more with the sacred feminine or sacred masculine. In some cases, both. There's some that are very balanced and have both within them. And then they gave me their names, which was a process. In some cases, that was a process of just meditating, going quiet, and names would come through as I held them. In some cases, they told me their energy and what they were about, and then told me now find my name through that. And then I would come up with a few names, and I would douse and use my pendulum and make sure on the name that they had decided upon. So there was different ways that names came. Sometimes it was in dreams, sometimes through other things, and so that was all interesting. And it took a long time. It wasn't, it was a process, but they did end up telling me there would be 22 in this core group. The other group, like I said, is still in process, and I don't know yet what's happening for sure there. But this group is a core group of 22. And once I got all of that, they then revealed to me that they were each going to represent one of the 22 major arcana tarot cards, and that they would each have a key aspect to support the collective with. And as you know, the major arcana cards in the tarot are representative of archetypal themes and keys of the universal human consciousness experience. So that journey began, and I learned with that each were holding one of these sacred keys. So that was really cool, because I had no idea. So like I said, it's like one step at a time. Trust this step, trust it, and then like everything just kept getting revealed. After that, they started calling in dragons, and the dragons are separate but connected. So there's the 22 core group of the crystal skulls that I have, and there are 11 dragons in this group. And the dragons are like sentinels or guardians to the multidimensional realms as well. And they are sort of way makers, way showers, and sort of clear spaces and open spaces for the skulls that they're working with. And then there's one skull who's his own, who stands on his own, not part of the 22, not part of the dragons, but he came in the very, very early, like very beginning, one of the first, and he's known as the interpreter. And we'll see him soon too. And he has his own purpose with the whole group. Before we introduce them, I just want to go to the origins of the speakers, how that name came to be. So when I first was getting that I was going to have a group, I was loosely calling them the Crystal Skull Council, but they assured me that I should not get attached to that. I could use it loosely for now, but that their name would come through, and it did, and it was the speakers. And when I heard that, I was like, this is very familiar to me. I know I've heard this before. And it just so happened that not long after that, I started rereading some of my very first books on my spiritual growth path that I ever did read, the Seth books. Some of you may be familiar with them from the early 70s, I believe. And these are channeled books by Jane Roberts. And the channeled information comes from a multi-dimensional essence named Seth, who Jane Roberts channels. And I believe that this information was way ahead of its time. I mean, there were people who got it, I'm sure. But I believe that the information is now the type of information more people would get or are ready for, and is much more caught up with the sped up time that we're in. And so it's interesting that I was drawn back to reading them again. And then around the second book, I think it was, or so, that I was reading, is when I found the reference to the speakers. And as soon as I saw it, I got chills. I'm like, oh, that's where it came from. Because Seth speaks about who these speakers are. And he talks about them as these ancient elders who were around through the ages, forever, farther back than what we know as history to be. And they, everything that they spoke was by word of mouth alone. They memorized all of the material, which took them years to learn and train in. And this material was information of universal codes of ethics, of universal codes of laws, and just messages that predate the emergence of any religion that we know of. And they carried these messages in the most purest, most undistorted way. And as I said, it was all spread by mouth, nothing written down whatsoever. And they had extraordinary memorization abilities, extraordinary vivid feeling, thought projection, telepathy, use symbolism a lot, very highly creative, could go into the unconscious and inner and outer worlds, moved in between both of them easily, very psychic, went into the dream and trance states and connected and communicated with people and gave messaging through dream states that acted as bridges and gateways to this very multidimensional consciousness information. He talks about that these codes were said to come from a race from another star that aided in the origins of Atlantis. So kind of tying in with the crystal skulls here, right? So that all came together. I was like, okay, I know why they're called the speakers. And Seth refers to the speakers, they're like teachers, and they're both in physical and non-physical form. So they're not all in human form. They are also off planet, but they are souls, spirits, essences that are constantly interpreting and communicating inner knowledge throughout the ages. And there's millions of these speakers. So these are, just because I'm saying these skulls are speakers, there's millions of them. And some of you may be speakers or may have been speakers yourselves in other expressions of your multidimensionality or currently. They are on and off Earth essences, like I said. And in this case, with my skulls, they're channeling through each of these 22 skulls. And as I mentioned earlier, in multidimensional viewpoints, maybe, in fact, they could be aspects of the speaker or speakers within me over and across time and space. So that's fun to think about as well. But what I've learned about them is they really like their intimate space. So they all sit, the 22 of them, their 11 dragons and other crystals, on a small meditation table I've had for years. It's only about 12 inches off the ground, so it's very close to the earth. And they are very closely gridded in a circular formation. And I like to think of it as like the round table, or think King Arthur and the round table and his medieval knights. So they are in a circular formation on the table, which I'm going to show you just shortly. And again, they have their dragon companions, they have the other crystals, and all of them help to amplify energies, access different doorways of multidimensional experiences, and create the perfect channel for the messages and things that they need to be doing. Some of the speakers, they reign from different places, different star systems. Most of them not all of them, but most of them I've gotten the star systems that they come from, but some of them are still processing that. And in the center of the table, there is a giant septarian dragon egg, and it is representative of the cosmic egg of creation that's being birthed from the coding, contributed and constantly evolving and innovating in every moment within this group, within the Earth realm, within just all that is. So that's kind of fun. You'll also see when I pan over here later, there are 5 pyramids at the center that are in conjunction with 5 of the skulls. And these are all of a newer material called fascia jasper, which is a very special stone. My friend Lisa from the Lemurian Rose brought them through, and there's also some fascia jasper mushrooms on the table. So there's a lot of cool stuff happening. Again, this is just a intro episode, so we're not going to get too into detail about everybody here, but we are going to have some introductions just so that you can get acquainted with them, see who they are, and then later in episodes, I have a feeling they're going to have some messaging, and particular ones may want to speak, and some cool things might come through. But so I would like to now move into those introductions, if you'll let me. It's going to be a little bit of a camera play here, so I hope you'll bear with me. I'm going to try my best to see if I can make sure to keep everything on camera so you can see. So I'm going to move the camera. Where are we? Okay. Okay, here we go. So that I can pan the table. Okay. The light in here isn't the greatest. It's really bright. It would be better if it wasn't. But let's just give an overall look. You can see there's a lot going on here. Hopefully in another episode we might have some better lighting. Oops. See everybody. I'm going to try to show you individually too as we go along, but it just gives you kind of an overview. Here's from above. Pan out a little bit. All right. So again, the lighting is kind of washed out, but let me introduce you to who we have. So our first I'm going to introduce you is back here. She's really hard to see, so she's looking white, but this big girl back here who has a feather headdress, and she's a singing skull. This is an amethyst singing skull, and her name is Mage. And she represents the magician card. Hello, Mage. I'm going to move over here now. So this one is hard to see again. Let's see. This is a double skull with butterfly wings. There, that's a little better look. Double skull on top of each other with butterfly wings. This is a malachite double skull, but they're one. So we have Enoch on the bottom and Ember, and they are the lovers. And then we have back here, hard to see, but this is a big quartz and golden healer pharaoh. His name is Sirius, and he is our Hierophant. And then, oops, let's move over here. So this big guy with the open head, let's see, it's hard to get in there. There he is. This is an ocean jasper, and he is Noki, and he is the Emperor card. And then over here, this big traveler skull in the back, really big, beautiful quartz with lodolite, star traveler being. That's Solterra, and she's the temperance card. Then we have over here this blue apatite star being. This is Bintari. He's Arcturian, and he's the justice card. Then we have over here the labradorite star being Wow, the lighting's really washed out. These are really gorgeous colors in person, so I'm hoping that I'm going to get better colors in daylight. This is done at nighttime with just the indoor lighting. But so this is our labradorite star being Lantera. She's Pleiadian, and she is the star card. Then we have over here, I love this one, this pink and red petrified wood from Madagascar. Such an elder, an ancient old mother. This is Alkebulan. Alkebulan, mother of mankind, it means. She's the devil card. And then over here, this biggie. Oops, there we go. The one in the middle right there is an African fluorite. This is Aster, the judgment card. Then over here, this is actually pink. Doesn't look pink at all. Look at her. So this is actually rose quartz with a giant black tourmaline on her crown. And this is Aviana. And she's the moon card. Oh, I can't wait for you to see the better colors. But anyways, at least you can see them. Then next to her, hard to see, but this is a trolleyite skull with a dragon on top. See the dragon? They each have a name. We have Kiara on the bottom and Sifrin on the top, and they are the chariot. Next to them, hard to see this guy, has a feather headdress that comes all the way to the front that looks like a bird from the side. This is a blue flower agate. His name is Torin, and he is the strength card. And then we'll go back over here. This one right here next to the fluorite. She's actually a peach moonstone with aquamarine in her, and quartz, and also some red garnet. Very unusual. And her name is Zintara. I wish it would focus better. That's Zintara, and she's the high priestess. Look at her headdress. And then we have this guy on the stand. We can pan out. You can see him from the side and the back. It's amazing. This is an Celestial citrine and Smoky Cathedral. It has limonite in it, feldspar, and it's also called a second generation Smoky Cathedral. BG3, I believe they call the citrine also, which is an adaptogenic citrine that adjusts to your energy frequency, which is super cool. But it's hard to see him in this lighting, but his name is Kato, and he's the hermit. And then we have this guy right here. Let's see. There he is. This traveler skull. Gosh, the light is bad. But you can see his long traveler skull. There he is. So this one is ruby in green kyanite. Ruby fuchsite, sorry, in green kyanite. His name is Sarek. He's Andromedan. I don't know if I've been telling you everybody, but where they're from, but he's the hangman. And then we have this traveler skull. Where are you? There you are. Hard to see. Maybe from the top is better. So this is a dark, it's very dark amethyst, not looking like it, with green amethyst, prasiolite, and phantoms, star traveler, and her name is Galasia. She's the Wheel of Fortune. And right in between those two travelers is this giant guy. He's amazing. This is black tourmaline and quartz with golden healer. His name is Solon, and he is the Fool. I love him. There's the back of his skull. Definitely going to get better lighting another day for you. And we're almost through. We have now our fascia jasper people. Okay, so this one, right there in the middle, is actually red. So this is fascia jasper, red starbeam, Drokan from Orion, the world card. Next to him, this one is a more yellow fascia jasper. She comes in. She's not coming in too good, huh? This is Nefertiti, or Niti, she likes to be called. And she's the Empress. And her partner over here, the black fascia jasper skull, is Akhenaten, or Aki, he likes to be called, the sun god, and he is the sun card. And our last two, we have this more mummy looking fascia jasper in the middle. She's kind of half rock kind of looking and half mummy looking. This is Nibiru, the death card. And on the opposite side, right there, another fascia jasper, mummy looking. This is Tazon, the tower. And each of the fascia jasper speakers have their own pyramids, as you can see. There's 5 for each of the elements. And we'll pan out. Then we have our Septarian cosmic egg in the middle, and I'm going to actually pick this guy up. This is the interpreter. This is Chinese writing stone, or chrysanthemum stone. I just love the interpreter. He has a raven on his head. And they each always have different names when they have a consort or companion. So we have Munja is the skull, and Nira is the raven. And this is our interpreter. And we'll put that back. So once again, we'll pan out. Let's see. Just give you an overview. It's not the best. I apologize for lighting, guys. Let's put you back up. Okay. Wasn't the best visual, but you did meet everyone, and maybe they wanted to be seen that way this time. And next time we're going to have, a better look, because we'll probably meet them more individually. But there you have them. And this is the first time, maybe that's why they wanted to be seen. This is the first time they're being seen, so they're all kind of lit up in really bright light. Maybe that's their essence at the moment, to be seen that way, but I trust it. But I'm honored and humbled to hold sacred space with them, to share that sacred space with you. Grateful that they are wanting to be seen now, and they actually sit next to me. My desk is just slightly in front and to the right of that table, so they're constantly right there with me. This room, my office, which I used to share with Astrid, is just lit on fire. The energy is through the roof. So special. Thank you. Thank you for your patience in being introduced. I know that they're excited to finally come out into the world, and I'm really excited to be embarking on this journey. So in the coming episodes, maybe we'll hear more from them. Like I said, I don't know what they have in store. I do feel we are going to learn more about each of them, probably more intimately. I have a feeling there's going to be some messages that come through. We are also going to have some interesting guests on the next upcoming episodes. We've already recorded several, so there will be some interviews. As I said, we've got some master carvers coming, some amazing healers and crystal workers that will be coming on board soon, and we'll be back. The main focus here again is crystal skulls. This is Talks with Crystal Skulls. The speakers are the ones behind this, and I'm Tanya Marie, your host. And I am so glad that you're here and that you are interested in this new evolutionary journey and co-partnership that is taking place on Earth at this time with each other, humanity-wise, with all of consciousness, the animal kingdom, the spirit kingdom, the elemental kingdom, our crystal brothers and sisters, our cosmic brothers and sisters, and it's an exciting time. So I hope you'll come back. If you have any questions or comments, I hope you'll share them below, and we look forward to seeing you next time. So thank you for tuning in for whatever reason brought you here today. I hope you received something of value, or maybe even just a seed for a later moment in time and space to blossom at the perfect divine moment. Until next time, in creative love and magic, and may all possibilities be open to you, from my heart to yours. Hope to see you again.